Welcome back to Winners and Losers Transfer Edition, everybody. It's me and Chris Hamill here, as ever, running down the biggest movers and shakers. We start with our first winner. It was suggested by Macca788. It's Barcelona.
Yeah, quick one. This is the last transfer winners and losers. So let's caveat it with, we'll do a summary of the window in the podcast, in the extra time
Good shout.
podcast.
Like
So
it.
this is still on a week-by-week basis, isn't
Yeah.
it? And Barcelona are our first winners. This comes from Macca788 because they've only gone and signed a bloody secondary left-back, haven't they, in Junior Firpo?
About time.
Which rounds off their window nicely. Of course, they got off to a cracking start, signing Frenkie de Jong. That was agreed way back in January, wasn't it? And some more big money transfers have gone through in the form of Neto, backup goalkeeper for 23 mil. Griezmann, just the 108 mil. And Firpo joins for an initial 16 with add-ons, potentially taking it to around 30. Which, given the season he had, is still a very, very good price for it.
Yeah.
I think you're going to touch upon his numbers
Yes.
in a second. So, Barca, that takes their total spend to £230 million. I don't know if that's their most expensive window ever. It's certainly been Real Madrid's. Of course, Real Madrid having a very paltry bid for Paul Pogba knocked back. Was it this morning or yesterday?
This morning, 27 million plus hammers.
Let's not talk about that, because that's bloody embarrassing. If Paul Pogba was valued at 150, James Rodriguez, good player, really like him, not worth 130, is he? Anyway, let's go back to Barcelona, because they've also, pocketed some decent change, selling Denis Suarez to Celta Vigo for 12 million, Paco to Dortmund for 19. Of course, that happened a little while ago as well now. And Andre Gomez, one of the best looking men in football, suave, slick back hair, has signed for Everton for 23 mil. Cillessen also joined Valencia in that kind of weird Neto FFP circumventing deal for 32 mil. And more recently, actually, Malcolm, it's not down here, Malcolm has gone to Zenit St. Petersburg for 36 million and apparently endured racist abuse during his first game there, which is abysmal. Anyway, let's not talk about that yet. So that's an overall kind of net spend of minus 98 mil. Given the personnel they currently have in their squad, you'd probably take that. But it could change dramatically if they continue to pursue Neymar, which has gone a little bit cold. But Spanish outlet Sport reporting that PSG and Barca are now in advanced talks over a loan deal, and they might make it permanent the year after. And no doubt Coutinho or Dembele would be a moving part in that.
Mbappe vibes, that.
Yeah, Coutinho, I think, will probably bang at PSG. But they've looked great pre-season, and of course have signed, a fair amount of creators already. The man joining from Sevilla, he got an assist, didn't he, in the French Super Cup against Rennes. Pablo Sarabia, thank you. I did forget his name temporarily. Go on, let's touch upon Firpo's numbers, because that's what's brought him into this script.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good deal. 5-year contract, like you said, rising to £27.5 million. Still just 22 years of age, so probably a deputy to Alba to start with, but I think could well take the reins. I was a little bit shocked this morning when I was doing the research that Alba's actually under contract until 2024.
Yeah, he signed a big money contract. He took him to term with it.
Yeah, I mean, that's another 5 years. He's 30 already, so he's going all the way until he's 35 at Barcelona. A little bit Dani Alves-esque in that regard. And Firpo put up some really big numbers last season. 1.6 tackles of the 2.2 he attempted. He's only dribbled past 0.6 times per 90. Slightly better than Alba going forward in terms of dribble statistics as well. Likes to get to the byline, doesn't he, and cut it back. I think it's probably a rotation option for multiple competitions. When they're playing
play all the way down that left side, can't
when they're playing some of the smaller fry sides in La Liga, you might see Alba rested and then brought in for the bigger Champions League games.
Yep.
I think this is a really smart move and one they've needed to make for ages. But I still think there'll be sales out of Barcelona before the end of the window. Of course, Premier League closes on Friday, but La Liga closes, I think it's about a month yet, isn't it?
Yeah, 31st, I think.
Plenty of time. And there will be exits.
Massive ones. Before we move on to our first losers then, if you're not subscribed to Football Daily, then what on earth are you thinking? Click that button up there and the notification bell so you never miss a Football Daily video. Now, before we get into Manchester United, Everton are first on the agenda. CPTN Kirk has sent this in. It feels somewhat harsh. Lost key players. An imbalanced squad, so justifiable. Let's delve into it.
Yeah, this has caused some proper debate in the office. Doogie has put Everton in the losers. I think that's maybe a little bit harsh based on a week-by-week
Bold
movement.
and brutal, mate. Bold and brutal.
Although I can
Literally.
see where he's coming from. On the face of it, you know, they've brought in Moise Kean, they've brought in Andre Gomez, they've brought in Fabian Delph, and they've brought in Jean-Philippe. Don't know how to pronounce the second name, so I'm going to go with Mbamin. Something like that. Bamin. I'm just going to call him Jean-Philippe for the rest of this episode. But you can caveat that with they've lost Idrissa Gueye, who most would probably describe as their most vital player. They've sold Adeloma Lookman to RB Leipzig for not a huge amount of money. They've lost Kurt Zouma, who's returned to Chelsea on loan, and haven't signed a centre-half.
And Ashley Williams, massive.
Which is a bit of an odd one. I mean, that defence worries me. They've got Keane, Mina, Matt Pennington and Mason Holgate as the current defensive options, and I think Holgate's being linked with a move away to like West
Bournemouth,
Brom.
Burnley, West Brom, 10 mil.
Which would be very odd. Let's touch upon Jean-Philippe, obviously joining from Mainz for £25 million. Looks like he's probably going to be the Idrissa Gueye replacement along with Fabian Delph maybe in that midfield.
That's an awful lot of confidence in a young man. He's not particularly young now, is he? 23, did you say?
Yeah.
To replace 6.5 tackles and interceptions.
I know. Well, he was chucking up 4.4 tackles and interceptions per 90 last year at Mainz. So he is still a bit of a powerhouse, and I guess that he's hoping, Marco Silva, if he pairs him with Fabian Delph's output, he might be able to get somewhere close to Idrissa Gueye's huge defensive output. Of course, he has joined PSG. What I will say is that I think the signing of Moise Kean is good. Like, that's a strong start. But they've got to get, in the next 4 days, a centre-back. They must get a centre-back over the line in the next 4 days.
Yes, and they've been linked with someone from Real Sociedad, whose name escapes me at the moment. But that is the only defender I've seen them being linked with. Apparently, they still hold out hope for Kurt Zouma. And I think Chelsea will probably make them sweat until the dying embers of the transfer window, and they'll end up paying 50 mil for Kurt Zouma. And Chelsea, because they'll bring probably Christensen back into the fold and have David Luiz and other players, Rudiger, I know he's injured at the moment. But yeah, they'll probably be willing to part ways for that princely sum of money. Anyway, let's go back to Moise Kean, because for £25 million, not bad business. That's not much of a gamble at all. 25 mil, even if he didn't work out, they could probably get 3/4 of that feedback from some middling side, couldn't they? 18 months down the line. But at 19, it's got to be said at the moment, it looks like one of the best prospects in Europe. First player born after 2000 to play in Serie A, to play for Italy, to score in Serie A, and for the Azzurri. And although he's only got 21 games under his belt for the old lady, he's scored 8 times and has 41 club appearances overall. Had a very productive spell at Hellas Verona, which is actually 4 more appearances than Phil Foden.
And how much would he cost?
Who's the same age as well. Yeah, absolute peas. He's only played 536 league minutes. He only played, in 18-19, but he was crucial. And he scored the winning goal in 3 matches. So decisive as well. And his stats look very promising for a guy his age. We covered this on Sunday Vibes, but 3.4 shots per game, 0.8 key passes. So it isn't much of a creator. Is pretty much an out-and-out striker, but 1.5 dribbles per game actually goes up to 2 when you adjust it to per 90 figures. So it has very useful attributes for someone his age, and he's still going to flesh out a little bit more, and he will be a real powerhouse, I assume, anyway. 8 of his 13 appearances were off the bench, and he was playing against tired defences, so that might have padded out his numbers somewhat. So let's just temper those figures with that. Silva now has some pretty healthy options going forward, doesn't he? So Keane, Richarlison, Sigurdsson, and then he could probably do with offloading Walcott, who's on decent wages, Bernard, who kind of flatters to deceive despite putting up kind of good dribble numbers, decent key passing numbers. Calvert-Lewin, Morales and Balassi.
I like Calvert-Lewin.
Can probably go. Calvert-Lewin's, expected goals and assists of 0.38, so I don't think he's going to be prolific, but he does offer them something differently, very useful in the air, can be a bit of a point man, can't he? But yeah, Balassi, I think he's been on loan to a string of championship clubs, probably looking to offload him. Morales never really worked his way back into the side, I guess, after initially being decent. And Henry Onyekuru, who I think they're trying to sell. 14 goals in 31 league games on loan at Galatasaray last campaign. Celtic actually tried to go for him. Should have come to us, mate. Would have scored, at least 30 goals in the SPFL. So 168 mil Marco Silva has spent since taking over in May 2018. 17 more than City in that time, but of course in the window before, City also spent an absolute shed load, so bit of a misleading statistic there. The pressure is on Marco Silva to improve on 8th place, and I don't see how they do that with the current defensive personnel, but they've also got tons of money, so I can see them just bringing in, you know, at least one centre-back before the window closes. What do you guys think? Where are Everton going to finish? Will they finish above Wolves and Leicester, who they're really competing with in sort of that table of 3 or 4 after the top? Should we say 5 now? 6?
Banter.
Dybala rejected him. Let's move on to that after the next winner.
Great. Moving on to our second winners.
I
don't know whether this is kind or not. This one is in there from Jacob McMaster. If we're calling Everton losers and Newcastle winners this week, I think there may be some issues in the comments.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I was struggling to find a convincing second winner, so thank you for sending that in, Jacob. And I've got to say, I like the Allan Saint-Maximin signing. And we'll get onto that in a minute. You're going to go through his numbers, the granular numbers, because that's what you guys come for, right? But let's start with the generics. So, following up on a £39 million splurge on Joel Linton, with 16 mil on Allan Saint-Maximin, which is a snip, I think, given his numbers over the last 2 years at Nice. And rumour has it there might be in for Ronnie Lopez at Monaco as well. Steve Bruce is like Unai Emery light. He's going to try and win every game 10-9 this campaign, apparently. Who'd have thought that Newcastle would have such flair players under Brucey?
I know, worries
This
me.
signing is a Brucey bonus. It's a Brucey bonus for sure, mate. So, 22-year-old Frenchman started 34 league games last season, contributing to 9 goals, which sounds about par for the course. 6 goals, 3 assists, that was. But expected goals and assists actually put him closer to 14, which would have been his best output by far in a season. And that would have matched Ayoze Perez's exact contribution with the Magpies. Regardless of kind of those middling figures, 9 was actually enough to make him Nice's MVP. They scored 30 goals in the league.
It's not hard to be their MVP then, is it?
That is absolutely frightening. So he was responsible for 30% of them, directly or indirectly. That's 4 fewer than Cardiff managed in the Premier League last year.
Yeah, and Sol Bamba was their MVP, so...
I think he got a fair few goals as well, didn't he? Fair play, Sol.
He was his top scorer, wasn't he?
And Sol? 30 was actually the 3rd lowest in League One last campaign, after places 20 and 19. Patrick Vieira's side, though, did have the biggest swing in terms of expected goals deficit. Understat determining they should have scored 13 more goals. So they were a little bit unlucky. Maximin being, the main, not getting the rub of the green, the main man who didn't get the rub of the green. The reality was their attack was much more mid-table, and they will miss him significantly. Bit on Nice's attack then, and Saint-Maximin as an individual.
Yeah, I mean, Nice, not a good side. I think it's fair to say 11.6 shots per 90, that's 12th in League 1. Allan Saint-Maximin taking 2.2 of them. So basically removed their best player by an absolute country distance. That would have put him 2nd at Newcastle, of course, behind Rondon, who was actually pretty effective last season. And we've talked about him playing all the way across the front line, but 1.1 shots from inside the box suggests that he might end up playing quite high up the pitch for Newcastle.
Good consistency.
And I'm not too sure who's going to deliver the ball into him.
John Joe!
Like him, Joe Linton and Almiron. Who's passing them the football?
What a gas front three that is, though. That is mental.
It seems a bit of an odd one, to be totally honest.
Fabian Shaw, Hail Mary.
He is a very good dribbler, so maybe he's going to be demanded to pick the ball up at centre half and dribble the entire length of the pitch, because he was completing 4.2 dribbles per 90 last season.
You seen where he completes them as well? He's just nutmegs people in a centre circle.
4.2. Those are like, is that a sort of a Adama Traore level, is that?
Well, that's Neymar levels in the league. I think he's 4.4.
Absolutely ridiculous. Perez last season, for a bit of comparison, was putting up about 1.2. It was only bettered last season by Neymar and Hatem Ben Arfa, of course, who was last time a big hit on the tune, wasn't he? 22 years old, 4 years Perez is junior. They've paid half the fee they did for Perez, right? They paid 30 in the end, Leicester, I think, and they've got Saint-Maximin for 16. So it seems like a no-risk piece of business. I still had the same issues I do at Everton, though. What's happening with the midfield at Newcastle? Because Everton's, they've got problems at centre-half. Newcastle got problems in centre-mid.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to be direct, aren't they? And John Joe Shelby will be at the base of midfield, and you're hoping that his array of passing, the amount of long balls he puts up, is good enough for this, like I said, very, very quick front three. They're going to cause a lot of sides big problems on the break if they can get that distribution right. So Maximin beating his man 56% of the time. Like, his numbers have got incrementally better, you know, since he moved to Nice. I think it's from Bastia. 1.7 key passes as well. So there's end product there. He's not Adama Traore. The comparison there will probably be a little bit unfair because he beats his man, and then in the final third, doesn't really come to fruition.
Will
but
he wear the
1.7
headband?
key passes is better.
That's all we care about. Will he wear the Gucci headband?
Well, no, it wouldn't suit the kit scheme, would it? And that, it's just an abomination.
Imagine he gets
I
a
rate it, but
Newcastle
an
own
abomination.
brand one. Who was it who used to
Sports
wear?
Direct?
Who was
Bang.
it who used to wear the wristbands? Was it Henry used to wear the wristbands with the Arsenal badges on? It was somebody at Arsenal. Who was it, George? Alex Song used to wear the wristbands with the Arsenal badges on. Imagine Joe Linton has a Newcastle branded Sports Direct headband on.
But what is the best accessory in football? Is it, you know, Alex Song's wristbands? Is it Jamie Vardy's sort of wrist cast? Or is it the Gucci headband? There's only one winner there. Got a bit carried away there with headband and forgot to mention Jetro Williams, who signed on, only for the sarcastic hands, jazz hands, at left back, can also play central midfield.
Replacing Paul Dummett.
6 starts for Eintracht Frankfurt last campaign, so not an awful lot to say about him, other than that he was rated at PSV about 5 years ago. Youngest player, I think, to feature for the Netherlands at the Euros. So that's all you get on Jetro Williams. Final loser, and we've kept you waiting, is from Tim J. Barg, and it's United/Maguire. Not quite sure why this qualifies you as a loser. I think the guys in the office just really don't like you and Manchester United.
I think just taking the piss out of me a bit here. Look, I understand this is an overpayment of like £30 million, but United had 2 major issues to solve at the start of the window, probably 3, and I think we've solved 2 of them. A centre-back and a right-back. We needed to replace he who should not be named. We've brought in Wan-Bissaka, and we needed to replace the Chuckle brothers, and we've brought in Harry Maguire. We still got massive issues in central midfield, in my opinion, and if Romelu does end up leaving, I think we're probably still a little bit light. I understand that Solskjaer wants to put his faith in the youngsters like Greenwood and Chong, but I think if you lose Lukaku, you have to probably replace Lukaku. Let's talk a little bit about those signings though, because Maguire, £80 million, takes our summer spending to 144.8 million. That is, of course, 129.5 on 2 defenders.
On British talent though, it's British and young.
It is. Eric Bailly, of course, tore his meniscus in pre-season as well. So
he's physically spent, isn't he?
I mean, all over the gaff. So even more imperative that we bought Maguire, and I think Maguire will probably be unveiled today. Not statistically, like I've seen loads of people throwing around sort of Mustafi versus Van Dijk versus Maguire, and Mustafi's winning statistically. Like, not the biggest statistical output.
But total stats towards the end of the season can be massively misleading. I'm actually writing a piece for a project we've got coming up that we're not talking about yet on Maguire, and mate, his numbers are very, very impressive.
Yeah, 6.2 accurate long balls per game. He's completing over 80 passes per 90. And United, I think, will be confident having Lindelof and Maguire that they've got 2 defenders that are comfy on the ball for once. There's some montages of Chris Smalling trying to pass the ball 10 yards and booting it into Rosie Z.
I think it's around 60 passes, wasn't it? Because Virgil van Dijk is about 79.
Yeah.
Aymeric Laporte's 80,
Yeah, 61 passes per 90.
Oh, is that what you said? I thought you said 80. My bad.
Yeah. So I think he'll be a massive upgrade on what we've currently got, but it is a massive overpayment. I think Leicester have fully bent us over a barrel here. And
which they can afford to do,
rightly
so. Cash rich, man.
Rightly so. They didn't need to sell him. Harry Maguire obviously wanted to leave in the end, and I think they were, once United paid the money, they were more than willing to let him go. And people have been banding around this week, oh, you know, well, De Ligt moved for 67.5. Yeah, De Ligt did move for 67.5 to a better team than Manchester United, and he's also earning £400,000 a week. That's
reportedly.
Reportedly. That's why they bloody got him so cheap, because they're paying out their arse in wages.
Yeah, and also Ajax aren't in a stronger negotiation position, because that means much more to them, doesn't it?
Exactly. So I think we've overpaid by a lot of money, but having said that, we've got 2 good defenders in.
Yeah, it improves your starting 11. So I put out a tweet sort of midweek when the deal was almost confirmed, sort of detailing who United could have bought for that amount of money. And, you know, teams might have been a little bit more punchy with their prices had United come in for those players, although one of them was Diallo to PSG, which is, of course, only like 31 million.
Crazy deal.
But they're going after a very specific profile of player, and they're going after Premier League clout. So be prepared to pay that Manchester United tax and that Premier League tax. If you're a United fan, I don't think you care about the price because it's coming out of the Glazers' pocket as well. But, you know, if the question is, could they have got as good a player for less? Probably. Upamecano, Konate spring to mind, you know. But that's not the question. Let's go into Dybala then, because we promised to visit this situation, and it looks like it's fallen through. Which, I mean, you've been on a bit of a roller coaster with Dybala, and you're up here at one point. You were down there, but now I think the reported wage demands have come out. You're not too bothered, are you?
Well, I'm obviously gutted to miss out on a player like Dybala. He'd have been a fantastic signing for Manchester United.
But you can see why for 350k a week, Manchester United deem that excessive and haven't pursued it any further.
And they've been bent over by similar players who don't want to play for Manchester United, but will take the cash and then leave after 12 months, a la Di Maria, a la Alexis Sanchez.
It's a very good point. I think if Alexis Sanchez isn't at the club, if you'd moved him on by now, maybe you pursue that deal. But to have someone who's on that amount of money who can play in that position, because Dybala would have to be forced out to the right when he goes, probably not the most effective. It just doesn't make any sense, fiscally speaking. Anyway, let's move on to Lukaku, because that situation rages on, doesn't it? 85 million euros Manchester United won, and Inter still, you know, heavily interested, but I think their initial offer was around 50. I
think it was 54.5, something like that, yeah.
So a massive disparity there between the two clubs. And the only striker I've seen United being linked with in way of a replacement is Mario Mandzukic.
Yeah, I don't think that deal will happen.
He's 33 and wants a 3-year deal.
Yeah, I don't think that deal will happen now that Dybala's off the table. I think United probably won't deal with Juve. I saw Blaise Matuidi mentioned as well. I don't think that'll happen. I think if I was United now, I'd go back to Inter and I'd go, okay, if you really want Lukaku, let's take Brozovic off you.
Or give us Icardi.
No, Icardi. I don't want Icardi.
We'll just put up with him being a head because we've not made sufficient signings to make us a Champions League club yet again.
But we do need central midfielders.
You do need a CDM. You've not replaced Fellaini. You put up a lot of minutes when he was there, you know, regardless of becoming a bit of a joke, somewhat unfairly. And the Herrera's gone to PSG, earning a small fortune himself. So I feel like end of the window. We're doing Fan Hour live on Thursday.
It's going to be busy.
You're probably going to be going in for Sean Longstaff for the for the princely sum of £50 million. And
I don't think we'll go for Longstaff. People will be saying as well at home, going, "What's happening, Bruno Fernandes?" Bruno Fernandes is Nico Gaitan 2.0. Nobody wants Bruno Fernandes. Sporting and just spouting nonsense. I saw the BBC reporting today that Manchester United and Tottenham have never had an interest in Bruno Fernandes.
Maybe not for 70 mil.
Yesterday it was Real Madrid wants him. Do they? Do they? Who wants him?
He's had enough. And
I've had enough of it.
We've had enough of transfers. This is our final transfer winners and losers for another season. Did you guys think it was a decent idea? Did you think it was a decent idea?
Decent idea.
You get fairly stressed at various points this
I'm fairly stressed until we sign a centre mid. If we bring Bruno Fernandes in, where's he going to play?
Well,
where does he play?
For Joe's health, it's a good reason this is the last episode. And if you enjoyed this, then like we said, subscribe, hit the like button, leave us a comment, get at us on Twitter. Buy one of these t-shirts. There's only one made at the moment, and it's on my back right now. Joseph, is there any other really interesting content people should look out for? Coming up. Podcast
on Wednesday. Yeah, completely forgot there. We have always got interesting content coming out, of course. Subscribe. But yeah, the podcast on Wednesday. It's going to be you, George, and Pat, I think, isn't it?
Bit of a personal announcement as well. Going to be presented on TV, aren't we?
Yes, on television. Tune in, Sky Sports on the weekends.
Ginger.